Aspiring artists and entrepreneurs defeated by resistance share one trait. They all think like amateurs. The moment an artist or entrepreneur turns pro is as epical as the birth of his first child. With one stroke, everything changes. I can state absolutely that the term of my life can be divided into two parts, before turning pro and after. To be clear, when I say professional, I don't mean doctors and lawyers, those of the professions. I mean the professional as an ideal. The professional in contrast to the amateur. Consider the differences. The amateur plays for fun, the professional plays for keeps. To the amateur, the game is his avocation. To the pro, it's his vocation. The amateur plays part-time, the professional full-time. The amateur is a weekend warrior, the professional is there 7 days a week. The word amateur comes from the Latin root meaning to love. The conventional interpretation of this is that the amateur pursues his calling out of love, while the pro does it for money. Not the way I see it. In my view, the amateur does not love the game enough. If he did, he would not pursue it as a sideline distinct from his real vocation. The professional loves it so much, he dedicates his life to it. He commits full time. That's what I mean when I say turning pro. Resistance hates it when we turn pro. Let's take a look at a professional. Someone once asked Somerset Maugham if he wrote on a schedule or only when struck by inspiration. "I write only when inspiration strikes," he replied. "Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp." That's a pro.
So, I got scammed. Not a typical kind of scam where I wired a bunch of money somewhere or clicked on a sketchy link, but a scam facilitated by a fairly well-known company that I thought I could trust. The company in question, and I don't want to say that they allowed or promoted this, but they definitely don't take steps to make sure that it doesn't happen. And that company is the Audible Creative Exchange, or ACX. I think we should all be on the same page to get started talking about this, so in case you don't know, ACX is a company owned by Amazon that allows independent audiobook narrators to audition for books that don't have audio versions posted to the site by authors or rights holders. Generally, ACX takes about 60% of the profit, and the narrator and the rights holder split the other 40%. I've produced one book so far on ACX, and honestly, I don't know why the rights holder didn't have me make some significant changes to the final copy, because listening back to it recently, it's not all that good. I've listened to a lot of audiobooks since and learned a lot about how they're edited and how they're paced, but that's all beside the point. We're talking today about my experience producing this book, The YouTube Formula, written by Daryl Eves, narrated by me, with a foreword by Mr. Beast. And before we go any further, the scam here, it has nothing to do with Daryl Eves or that book. It could have been any book. I'm not throwing any shade at all. Just want to get that out of the way right now. But getting back into it, as you might imagine, I was really excited when I saw this book seeking auditions on ACX, and I naively assumed that the author or the rights holder of the book was trying to help out a small creator by giving them sort of a break. This was a book that has hit the Amazon bestsellers list and would be a very large opportunity for someone. Needless to say, I jumped at that opportunity. I recorded and submitted my audition, and the wait began. A few days of tentative excitement later, I got a message through the ACX messaging system, and to my surprise, it said that my audition had been selected. I was officially the producer for the YouTube Formula, and I was over the moon about it. I told all of my friends and family, I set up my sound booth, and got to work. I live right next to an intersection, which is often a pretty trying test of patience while recording anything, but when you need to record for as long as you do while doing an audiobook, you really start to develop a deep disdain for loud trucks. So after a couple of weeks of recording, getting interrupted, and re-recording, I came to the end of the book, which meant it was time for the part of the process that isn't dependent on what's going on outside: the edit. The edit went incredibly smoothly for several days, no real hiccups or hangups, and I was well on my way to beating my deadline by a fairly significant margin. Then, I hit the last quarter of the book, and it took a turn for the worse. All of a sudden, permeating the entire recording was a horrible and unignorable humming sound. I tried everything I could on the software side to fix it, but there was nothing that would get rid of the hum without destroying the quality of the audio. So after some very stressful troubleshooting, I decided the only way to proceed was to set the booth back up and re-record the portion of the book plagued by this noise. So I set the studio back up and got started on the re-record. Inside a freshly constructed booth, I got back to reading and finished the afflicted section within a couple days. Still definitely on track to meet my deadline, but not with the same comfy wiggle room. When I added the new to the old, they didn't match. My voice, the redesigned space, or something else, but whatever was at fault, the original sound was not going to be recaptured. That meant that a full reread was going to be necessary, and I didn't have time left to do a full reread and another full edit, so I reached out to the rights holder and requested a deadline extension of 3 days. After requesting the extension, I got back to work immediately, waking up early and working into the night each day. In a perfect acoustic environment, it wouldn't take so much time, but due to environmental intrusions, an hour of reading was consistently taking 3 to 4 hours. After the reread, I started editing again, and this time, the humming was back immediately. I was baffled. The redesigned studio required me to crawl into it, and all of my brand new shielded XLR cables were run through the ceiling to avoid anything interfering with them. Before crawling in, I check my levels on my audio monitor, see a satisfyingly low noise floor, and crawl in for a multi-hour read. I couldn't see my audio monitor from inside my soundproof cave, so I couldn't see that as I was crawling in, the humming would start. It increased in volume as I got closer to the mic and held steady while I read. Then, when I was done with my read, I'd crawl out, check my levels, and see that they were looking good, because as I got further away from the mic, the hum died down and went completely away. So by the end of the complete reread, every single recording was backed by a steady hum. I spent way too much time that day trying to reclaim the audio, but removing the noise ruined the quality of the read. Disappointed doesn't even come close to the feeling I was feeling. I had been talking myself up about how great this was going to be. I told all of my friends and family about the book. I even worked through my sister's baby shower to meet my still unconfirmed extended deadline. I wasn't sure what to do. I had sores on my tongue and in my mouth from talking so much. I had heat rash on my hands, and I was mentally exhausted. At this point, I had still not heard back from the rights holder about my extension. I was just hoping that they wouldn't quietly cancel the contract and leave all of that unrealized work as exactly that, unrealized work. The only thing I could think to do at this point was to start from scratch again. So that's exactly what I did. I logged into ACX, and still not having heard about the first one, I asked for another extension. I figured that the worst that could happen was I would get to stop working on the project, which at that point sounded like it wouldn't be the worst thing ever given the condition of my body. But again, I received no reply, which should have been a red flag, but I figured that they were probably just busy. I knew now that the fault was somewhere in my equipment. So I checked the Amazon sales rating, ran it through a calculator, and decided that I would buy a whole new set of audio equipment that would make the stuff that I upgraded from look like toys. I couldn't really afford to do that, but figured after about 2 months of sales, it would have paid for itself. So I bought all new gear, took a couple of days to recuperate while it was shipping, and planned out how I was going to go about doing the whole thing a third time. I decided that this time I was going to do punch and roll recording so I didn't have to spend so much time in the edit and could hopefully deliver the end product faster. I got my DAW set up for punch and roll and the new gear arrived. I set it up immediately, feeling immense guilt and dread that I was late delivering my product, and got back to work. Punch and roll recording is an amazing thing. It was a little tough at first, but by the time I got to part 2 of the book, it was like a second nature. The third rendition was going great. The reading was going faster, I was listening to each audio file as soon as I was done recording, and there was no buzz. They actually sounded great. I was super excited that I was going to be able to deliver a product worthy of pride for both me and the rights holder. I was still exhausted, and the heat rash and sores were starting to come back because of the stagnant air and hot temperatures in my sound cave, but I was getting it done, and it was good. I finished the recording, having been working all day, every day for almost 2 months at that point, and started my final edit. The edit was going great. Honestly, once I got the hang of punch and roll, it was primarily just review. There were clicks and pops that had to go, but for the most part, it was pretty smooth sailing. On my final day of editing, the day before I was going to finalize and submit the finished, polished audiobook, I got a text from my mom containing a screenshot that she'd taken from Daryl's Instagram page of him talking about how he'd been hard at work on the audio version of his book. My stomach sank. Honestly, it doesn't feel good to think about it now. At first I was in denial. He must be hyping up the imminent release of my version. But the wording didn't imply that, and he doesn't seem like the type of guy who would lie to his audience. I was shocked and disgusted, and I wasn't really sure what was going on. I had the completed audiobook on my computer ready to go, and here was Daryl in the studio working on the book. I reached out to him immediately for clarification on whether or not I had been working on an illegal copy of the audiobook, to no avail. To this day, I still haven't received a response. I reached out to ACX to inform them that I was not sure the rights holder of the book I was contracted to produce was actually the rights holder of the book that I was contracted to produce. Fitting in with the rest of the story here, they didn't respond to my help ticket, but 2 days after I sent that message, I was informed by automated message that the contract had been dissolved. Since then, I've looked into it, and ACX holds that it's the producer's responsibility to vet the rights holder of a title by trying to get in touch with the publisher or author and verifying that the listing on ACX is legal. At first, I didn't understand why they would seemingly shaft their producers like this, but somewhere while I was reading things online, something reminded me that they make 60% of the sales. So me and the scammer, who claimed to be the rights holder, would have split 40% of the profits, and the majority share of 60% would go to ACX. So it seems to me, and I'm not making any accusations, but it seems like it would be beneficial to the platform and the scammers to not vet rights holders and just hope the author never notices that their intellectual property has been stolen and published on Audible, where 3 parties they have no knowledge of profit off of their work. This sucks. It sucks extra because it requires no work on the part of anyone but the producer. Obviously, not every experience would be like the one that I had. It was riddled with unfortunate events that possibly ended up being fortunate events. Because if I had finished with no humming, no problems, I had gotten it done the first time that I did the book, I would have released an illegal copy of the YouTube formula on Audible. I don't know what then would have happened when Daryl tried to release his copy of the YouTube formula on Audible, but I can imagine it would not have been great. Obviously, I was not super pleased that I had done all of that work and it was for absolutely nothing, but the thing that ground my gears the most was the contrast in the amount of work necessary. All the fake rights holder has to do is download a PDF of the book, submit it to ACX, wait for auditions, select a producer, then wait for the money. While the producer has to do just that, produce the audiobook. And it doesn't always go smoothly, as we just covered. I'll still be using ACX, but in the future I will be much more careful now that I know they don't really have my back, and I'll be more cynical in my approach, knowing that they benefit from every title they publish, whether or not it's on the up and up morally or legally. That's it for story time and my little rant. If you're still here, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to my story, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them in the comments section. I didn't really have a grand goal putting any of this out there, other than just feeling like I needed to talk about it, but if this video helps somebody, then that's all I can really ask for. I'm planning to get back into the Resolve tutorials next week, so stay tuned for that if it's your thing, and if you haven't seen it yet, I have a website now, and it has some visual elements that you guys can use in your videos, as well as some sample B-raw footage if you want to practice your color grading or anything like that. That'll be linked in the description down below. Some of you may have noticed the shelves behind me now. It's a new addition to the studio, and you may have even noticed that lens back there. I'm going to send you over to younger me from several years ago to tell you about that lens and to do the sign off. Be prepared. He's pretty awkward on camera. I'll see you next week. I mentioned this in my last video, so I'm not sure everybody saw it, but I am going to be doing a giveaway. I'm going to be giving away this one. This Canon EFS 50mm 1.8, the Nifty 50. It's an amazing lens, and once this channel gets to 10,000 subscribers, as far off as that may be, I'm going to be giving one of those away. So make sure you subscribe so that we can get there a little bit faster and so that you have your chance at winning. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a great day. I'll see you next time.